first dance school in Florida was Buddy Ebsen from the Beverly Hillbillies, the famous song and dance man. But then Aunt Edie and Uncle Bill's, the Royal School, that became where everybody came from.
My dad was Kip Watson, my mom was Patty Watson-Walsh, and then my aunt was Barbara Riggins. My parents were dancers. They actually started dance here with the Royals and then went to New York and did Broadway and did all that kind of stuff.
Kip and I actually danced together with the Royals.
Well, they all started out with Edie and Bill, so they were all based in ballet. They were like parents to Kip and Barbara, and they grew up living with the Royals. Edie and Bill were very good about exposing all their students to all the art forms.
Kip moved to New York.
And in New York, they basically spread their wings into different things. They all had professional careers. They'd all danced on the stages in New York. They had toured, they had done their due diligence other places.
I think my mother was kind of reluctant to leave New York. She always felt a little bit more at home in New York, let's say, doing her own thing. Thank goodness that she didn't, because I think we all benefited from this kind of this happening.
Kip's passion was to really take it and then create another entity. Even while he was still in New York.
When we moved back down here, my dad wanted to bring professional ballet to the Orlando area.
Kip and Patty built School of Performing Arts, and that was where the ballet started as Southern Ballet Theater.
This is Kip Watson. Without Kip, there would be no Orlando Ballet.
Kip was the executive director when I started with the company, and then Barbara was the artistic director. And they were really different. They were brother and sister, but so different. Kip was very businesslike, which was good for an executive director.
I always got the feeling Uncle Kip was like the pusher. Yeah, but why don't we do it this way? Let's try it that. Let's give him a little bit of uncomfortableness and take it forward, and not just always do what everybody wants.
He was the visionary that brought in his sister. He was the visionary who let his wife come along for the ride.
Patty was a gloriously beautiful woman.
Her love was teaching. She was very organized, knew exactly what she wanted, how she wanted it done.
At one point, I stopped going to class to learn how to dance. I was studying how she was teaching because I thought psychologically she was so brilliant. All three of them were really brilliant at motivating dancers.
Kip would always say hi. He was, friendly but very quiet, shy, and
Could seem kind of stern, but then he would just say something off the cuff that would make you laugh or put you at ease.
Kip was so much fun. He was very quirky.
He liked art. He liked not just dance, but he liked music and he liked visual art, and he was a big proponent for that.
He was very instrumental in bringing the arts together, the opera, the Philharmonic at that point, and saying, we need to work together to make art happen here.
he didn't like the technical side of dance too much when he was creating. He just wanted you to kind of over here, and you did a couple of jumps, and you came over here, and now you're going to dance with a girl. What do you feel with this music?
The dancers all loved him.
In ballet class, when we got to the third Grand Plie, we would all fall down, and he just would laugh and laugh, and we would just joke like that back and forth. So it made it a very fun atmosphere. Patty was a little more serious, Barbara was a little more serious, Kip was the cuckoo one. It was a lot of fun.
Kip was wonderful, and Kip and his sister Barbara were both very good teachers.
They were both an incredible team.
My dad really wanted to create, and he was, even though he became a businessman, he was an artistic person who wanted to create art and wanted to share it with Orlando, his home. I mean, he loved Orlando. As my parents split, she kept the school. He had to take the company elsewhere.
Kip and Patty were divorced, but Kip was a very warm, wonderful person and gave his life to start this company.
He was Southern Ballet Theater.
All three of them just were a great combination to raise dancers.
Patty Watson-Walsh, Kip Watson, and Barbara Riggins. They were the team that started this.
They were very dedicated to dance. Barbara especially.
Barbara Riggins was such a pioneer. She's a sweetheart, very hardworking.
Passionate and always wanting to do new things.
She was very old school, And she would never compliment you, but she would take you by the hand and walk you to the front of the class.
I was always impressed with her ability to remember every single person's name.
What I loved about Barbara is that she believed in you, and you knew that she believed in you.
There was never a wall or, an attitude or anything like that. She was always open to respond.
Barbara was this explosive, beautiful, thing, but you had to sit back with Barbara and let her go.
Barbara wanted not just the classics, she wanted to bring in more cutting edge choreographers and works for us to challenge us as dancers.
She had a very good eye to find a talent.
It was fascinating to me, the choreographers she brought in.
She had a great eye, especially like looking at other people's work. She was open to influences.
She would bring in these young choreographers and give them a chance to showcase their talents.
You would go, wow, where did she find this person? There was a lot of different things that she was very, very good at.
She was one of the first people that really made me feel like, hey, I can do this, And I think she was like that with a lot of people.
Barbara was always letting people live with her. They were always trying to let the dream happen and do whatever they could for you so that you could dance.
That's what I loved about her. She would do anything, She could do anything. And nothing was below her to do.
The ballet was her baby. It's her child. She loved the ballet as much as she loved any of her children.
What she always said was, I think my greatest talent is educating, creating opportunities for things to happen. That's what she felt was her greatest strength.
She still was such an impact in my life, and I know in many people's lives.
And she had, I think, a great deal of insecurity when she was choreographing, which I think in certain cases she enjoyed doing. I know with the Apprentice Company, we did a lot of interesting work that I always felt that she got very excited by. And sometimes with the company, she would be, of course, nervous about, was it good enough now for the company at this stage? So the confidence was always kind of up and down with her.
She was also the originator of the STEPS program.
Barbara did this outreach program with STEPS that was just amazing for kids who probably wouldn't have a chance to have ballet.
There are a lot of children out there that never have the money or the parents who know to bring them to ballet class. And so I used to go, I went to a POPCA, and I used to go from school to school myself and teach. So I developed a program that then we could bring them to the ballet company, which is, of course, a much better thing for the children.
She started that. She continued doing it after she stepped down from directing the company.
Barbara was very driven, very driven. And Orlando has this ballet company because she had a vision. She believed it could happen here and that she could make it happen. And she did.
Mom and Uncle Kip and Aunt Patty, they were teaching until 10:30 at night, 5, 6, 7 classes a day. Just them.
I started in 81, yep. And we went to 93, through 93. See, when we started as 3 of the artistic staff. We didn't really have titles so much as we just all 3 had the same goal in mind of creating this company and creating new pieces.
We did a spring concert or a ballet in the wintertime, or they were big productions.
My whole family was just in the business from beginning. My grandmother was their secretary as well as costumer.
Kip's mother, Phyllis, was the wardrobe mistress. She made all of the costumes. That's all they had then, was Phyllis, Mother Phyllis, who made all the costumes.
I mean, you got to realize up to that point, everybody who was involved in the company was kind of found along the road. I remember the feeling of this kind of good old-fashioned American, like, we can do this, let's do this. Let's get some energy going. Let's make something happen. And I think that they had this drive, and it was a really purely positively driven thing, which is so beautiful. Learning also not to be so precious and just get out there and dance, cement floor, grass floor. We danced on grass. We danced everywhere on the water, and that was kind of the spirit from the beginning, I think. Like Mickey Rooney and Judy Garland, and my uncle's got a barn, and my cousin's got a piano and I think we got some lights in there and let's put a show together, you know? Even with all those challenges, it was a magical place to grow up in, and it was an educational place. But I think in the middle of it all was always this sort of brother-sister team, Uncle Kip and Mom, just kind of pushing each other and pushing all of us and pushing the audience and pushing everything. I know Aunt Patty and Uncle Kip split up. I know my parents split up. Well, this is happening, and let's figure out what we're going to do now.
Barbara and Kip started creating the company. SBA was the school. Southern Ballet Theater was the entity pulling away from the school.
So then the performing entity becomes a professional company.
I expect the ballet to have some ups and downs. All arts organizations do throughout their lifetimes.
Our first years were very lean, very lean. You didn't even know if you were going to get paid until payday. And a board member would sometimes walk in and would just write a check. And there was payroll. Kip would run to the bank and get it cashed, and then you would get payroll after that. It was scary.
You come to understand that the organization had really gone through a lot of struggle.
There was a period in, like, I want to say maybe the mid-'80s where we had layoffs. And as dancers, it was like, what do we do? We stood out on the corner of Pine and Orange in our tutus handing out chocolates.
Art and business sometimes don't mix.
We did a performance in front of what used to be the Barnett Bank Plaza, which is no longer downtown. They put the floor down, the black floor down early, and we didn't perform till noon. Well, it got so hot that we burned the bottoms of our feet. So that kind of stuff was rough, but it was because of who I was and what my family was, I saw it differently than probably a normal dancer who signed a contract and then the next year wasn't here.
Eventually, Kip learned how to write grants himself, so they were always getting grant money.
Being on the Arts Council, and he used to call it his dog and pony show.
They found ways to find the money, always to find the money. They would go to dinner with them and whatever, and my mother would, start talking, and next thing, there was a check.
She came and she was excited, and she said, "We got it. We are the Florida State Touring Company." Of course, that meant a little bit of extra money from the government, but it meant we were the ones to go on tour through Florida. One year, we went all the way up to North Carolina.
Nobody minded because it was such a great exchange. We were getting the training and the experience, and it was run very professionally, and they were getting us to dance for them.
We had a bus some years later, and followed by the technicians in a Winnebago. That's where they would sleep, in an RV, and then a sort of semi truck with the scenery and costumes. And we would, as the dancers, we would unload the truck and we would lay the floor. And after the performance, we would pick up the floor and help them strike the set. And then we would all meet in the Winnebago and have a party. But the traveling was interesting and difficult and challenging. And we danced Nutcracker one time where they literally had guys, you had to hold on to the wings, and they would stand there for the party scene. And then to get rid of the Christmas tree, they would walk upstage and cover the Christmas tree with these black flats that they had made, because we had no wings to go from sort of just this dancing school and this idea that they had to touring around Florida and Southeast America for a month doing Nutcracker. It was just fantastic.
Shortly after I got on the board, the executive director, Kip Watson, resigned.
My dad was really smart in the way of knowing when it was time, and he knew at that point that he could no longer do what needed to be done.
He was so incredibly proud, but he went, there is a time when it must go on to the next generation.
He got so much into the business part of it that he had lost the artistic part of it, and I think he really missed that.
And that really kind of was a defining moment. He went, I made this happen. There's a reserve in the bank. I brought all this together. I got it to the budget I said I wanted to get it to, and now it's time to do this.
And so he and his sister, Barbara Riggins, had been, the team that had kept Southern Ballet Theater clicking along.
And so I think a lot of things happened and switched off when Dad left, because I think Dad was the buffer.
I mean, when he decided to leave, I'm going, you can't do this to us. He went, it's time. I'm ready for my next adventure.
I did 2 things with him that I actually got to dance with him. And that, at the time, I was 16, 17 years old. I didn't appreciate it. But I was very fortunate to be able to perform with my dad. I miss him.
When organizations that have been run by their founders are making the transition from the founders, and that's a very delicate, dangerous time for any organization.
After Barbara stepped down, Vasile Petruccio took over as director of the company.
In the meantime, the president of the board took me to lunch, said, did you ever consider to take the position of artistic director? I accepted the position, and it was tough because Barbara was still, they gave her 6 months, and it was very tough. And as much as I love her and all that, she thought I dug her down.
But it was one of those times when, you just haven't got the right fit. In an arts organization, there's so much about temperament and personality and being able to work well together.
Her choices for programming, it was going more toward contemporary. And we were running out of audience. Programming was not bad, but it was not for the audience at that time. The audience at that time needed stories. That's why all the theme parks are here and all that. And the classicals were almost taken out. And those are the story ballets.
And Kip and Barbara had this bond, even though they often fought, over the little things. That you can't really recreate that. You have to, sometimes it's trial and error, and this one was an error. But you don't know that until you're well into it.
After Barbara stepped down, Vasile Petruccio took over as director of the company.
Vasile was a great director. I have a lot of fun to work with him.
I've known Vasile for a very long time. There's just so much passion and so much drive in that man still to this day. He's a beast artistically.
At the time, Southern Ballet Theater was a smaller company.
It was an organization that was really on the brink of either reemergence or disaster.
On top of it, it had become a difficult fundraising environment here in Orlando. They had raised a lot of money for United Arts, and they had started putting restrictions on what the arts organizations could do on their own as far as fundraising was concerned.
There seemed to be a pattern having developed sort of organically how the cultural arts were even funded in Orlando at the time.
In 1995, we found that we were deeply in debt. So I had an idea. First Union had a foundation. The foundation gave $400,000 to United Arts, and United Arts gave the $400,000 to us, and we gave the $400,000 to First Union National Bank. And that all happened in one day. I was able to walk away and know that that $400,000 had been taken care of and was no longer hanging around Southern Ballet Theater's neck, so to speak.
I started to bring Romanians, Armenians, Russians, people from outside, which they would love to have come here to this country, but they didn't have an entrance unless this. So then I started to fill up the company with really good talent.
Our male core became much, much stronger.
I think that kind of started that trend that's still happening. I mean, yeah, we have a lot of homegrown dancers, but then we do have dancers from other places.
And then first year, I got to choreograph Carmen and then Nutcracker. Then people wanted more and more of this and all that. So then Soleil. So we're doing really well.
Audiences were coming back. The rep looked better than ever. Everything seemed to be coalescing. And all of a sudden, Vasily left. The organization, I think, was reeling a bit, and then had the extraordinary good fortune to have Fernando Bujones step in as the next artistic director.
Before Fernando actually entered into the position, he came to see the ballet first, to see the company, to see them perform, and then make his decision.
And when he came here, that was the very beginning. I thought, this is great.
Greatest American-born dancer in the 20th century. Doesn't get any better than that. That's huge.
He was one of the best, probably, of this century. There's very few people that you do. You think of Baryshnikov and you think of Bujones and those iconic heroes of the art form.
Fernando had been in the most extraordinary performances from Cuba to New York, the world.
It's like working with a legend. You know, it's like dancing with Tom Brady.
The second that he walked into the studio, the energy changed.
Fernando was a perfectionist.
When he's in the studio, he's one of the dancers like, he just don't teach the dancer like how they jump, he will jump in together to teach and do it.
He expected excellence, but at the same time, he did that with love.
And it was like this eager push that he always had for his dancers.
The dancers adored him, beyond anything I've ever seen in a teacher-student relationship.
He just cared about you as a human being too, which is really nice. We all were very close.
And then Fernando Bujones became ill.
I don't think we all really knew how sick he was.
These have been 5 years that, with all his blood, sweat, and tears, hard work, and pride, and passion, and love, if I had to do it again, I would do it again the same way every minute. Because I've loved every second of everything that has happened to this company. And today, when I look at all of you on the stage, you bring tears to my eyes.
I called Father Miguel, who said, I need to go tell the dancers that Fernando has passed.
They bussed us down in a charter bus to Miami for his funeral, and every single dancer was there.
Father Miguel said, just tell him that he'll be alive forever, as long as they dance and love him.
Dancing after he passed, we were nervous about where the future of the company was going and where the future of our careers were going. I think all the dancers were kind of craving some leadership and some direction.
Bruce Marks called me up within weeks of Fernando's passing.
And Bruce was president of the jury for the International Ballet Competition, the biggest one of all, and also had been artistic director from Boston Ballet.
I had a very, very background in ballet. In fact, I didn't start out as a ballet dancer. I had a career like no one else's because I started as a modern dancer.
Fernando was that driving force, and then Bruce came in and kind of was like the educator of the art form.
He was dynamite. I mean, his personality was like all in. You know, he just embraced with an incredible passion ballet from a very different kind of temperament than Fernando.
And Bruce came in and he taught a class, and he was funny and charming and so knowledgeable. I mean, he shared stories with us that I was just like, wow, this guy is just like an encyclopedia of ballet.
He's a legend. You ask anything about ballet, any question, from top to bottom, from A to Z, he probably will have an answer for it.
Extraordinarily famous. In fact, there's a great book called Icons that have, you know, John Lennon, Yoko Ono. Bruce is one of the people in that book. Well, Bruce came and added so many phenomenal artistic pieces. In fact, one of his, the first or second year he was with us, he said, I'd like to do Swan Lake, but I really want to do it. And I said, it sounds wonderful.
I realized that if we're going to make a new start, it better be a big one. And I had some wonderful, wonderful dancers, really, who could do so much. I was amazed. All we needed now were some big productions, and those are always expensive. So I borrowed the Swan Lake, and we were off and running.
It was a one-year project. He brought in choreographers that specialty was Swan Lake from South Africa. The dancers danced 1 year to Swan Lake. It was quite a process, but the end result might have been the most breathtaking Swan Lake ever.
I remember the curtain going up for prologue, and the audience started clapping just when the curtain raised. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's never happened before. You know, this is new for Orlando. Orlando's seeing new things.
And he brought the company to another level. So Bruce stayed with us for a while, and then we brought on Robert Hill.
Robert did such a great job in making something out of very little.
He arrived at Orlando Ballet in 2009. The organization was not at the place yet to have enough funding to commission new works.
He was so welcoming and easy to talk with. Like the minute I walked in the door, he was ready to give me a hug. Like that's how he was. He was very upbeat and very easy to have a conversation with.
Seeing the way he cared for the dancers was always really special.
Our dancers continued to expand and to grow under Robert's leadership.
He made lemonade all the time.
He would be kind of given a directive, or he would come up with an idea of, well, we could kind of go in this direction, and then he would create a piece.
What a love for dance, for dancers, for choreographers, for pulling in an audience.
And he really brought the ballet forward during his tenure.
I think he was really good at making ballet accessible to modern audiences.
Robert Hill had been the artistic director in Monterrey, Mexico.
And Robert did have great interest in connecting with the Hispanic community because he lived in Mexico for 4 years. He spoke the language. He understood the culture.
That gave him a lot of opportunity to collaborate with people. He brought a lot of that here. He did a show called Bailamos, using all Latin-inspired music, some with vocals, some without.
He was vivacious about going, more people need to see dance.
Robert can put out a product that audiences enjoy.
What a great advocate for the art form.
Then we were more of a ballet company that this community not only appreciated, but we stepped up to the plate and became, I would say, one of the greatest arts companies in our community.
He did leave a great legacy here.
When I came, the school was probably bigger than the company, and so that's why we had to find another place to rehearse.
We were constantly moving. The Gypsies of Orlando, it was like, where's a space we can rehearse?
Several times. We were homeless for a while there.
During my tenure, we were in 4 locations within about 5-6 years.
Kip moved us into this old gentleman's club, which we found out there was a buzzer under the front desk.
We were running extension cords from the main office, across the pool, through the men's room, into the studios, so we could have electricity.
Then we moved to an old garage that was on a train track on Parr Avenue. And it was so hot in there. It had metal ceilings. It was like being in a broiler.
We had porta potties outside, or you went across to the park and used the bathrooms.
The side on the right with the door, that was the original building. The side on the left with the door, Uncle Kip built literally with his bare hands.
We built floors, we built studios, we built the offices.
We called it the warehouse, I think. And in the back were these huge studios.
So he could have performances within that studio space.
I remember being a kid walking around in the construction site, because that's just such a really cool thing to do when you're a kid. And there was Uncle Kip and Mom and Dad and everybody, you know, and just people showing up and laying bricks and building stuff.
Then the next place we went was
Theater Downtown.
Used to be called Theater Downtown.
We rehearsed in the lobby, which was all plate glass windows in front. And our floor was a portable floor that was raised on garden hose because it was cheap. And you just staple the pieces of garden hose underneath it to give it cushion.
Then the next was
McCrory's.
Woolworth and McCrory's.
McCrory's, what a...
That was weird. That was just, it was an empty old store.
Yep.
And then we built 3, wasn't it 3 kind of dance floors?
We had 3, we had one tiny one.
We are to move into a new building called the Ivanhoe Power Plant.
And this is one of the reasons, because we don't have studios this large, nor a space to rehearse with the orchestra at the same time, except in the Bob Car. And the Bob Car is booked so much that we really need this kind of space.
It was built by OUC as a plant, and it was given to the ballet at a rent, I believe, of $1 a year in order for us to have a home.
So it was an incredible facility. The history of it, the architecture was a really awesome building to work in, but it was a struggle for sure.
I mean, we kind of ended up without heat.
It would flood during hurricanes or bad rainstorms, so we knew that there was probably some kind of water damage.
Water ran underneath the studios. It was a nightmare.
The wardrobe department, most of their storage was impacted anytime there was significant rain.
All the costume was in the lower part of the building, and because the rain in the lake, everything is get flooded. This means every morning I spend 4 hours to drain the water to keep the costume safe.
And you know, all of the stuff that was accumulating on the walls, and we didn't know, we didn't realize it.
So there were water issues that led to mold issues. That fateful day in 2013, I was the one who was sitting in a meeting with individuals from OUC when they let us know that they had found mold in the building and that we were gonna need to leave.
I can remember the day, it was a Thursday. We went to lunch, we came back from lunch, and they had a meeting with us and they said, we're gonna have to vacate. The building's not safe. It's kind of eerie because I was looking up at that big spiral staircase and I was like, is this the last time I'm gonna be here?
That was a huge transition for us as well. That definitely had an impact on the downward slope of the organization.
I knew when I was cleaning out my locker, I was like, this is the last time I'm gonna be in this building. I just have this feeling. It was so like weird.
I remember all that process between the old building and this new building. We're moving for different locations. We went to Disney, we went to downtown.
And kind of fractured, you know, schools over here, companies over here, and the admin is over here.
You didn't get to know people in the organization at all because you physically weren't near each other.
And at that point in the game, the buildings themselves were not in very good shape. So the work environment was challenging.
I need to move in my van with costume everywhere, every location. I remember places that they have just pieces of carpet that you get into the studio.
They obviously had struggles through multiple facilities.
However, it made it charming on some level until it wasn't. And thank God for Harriet Lake.
Harriet Lake was a fierce advocate for everyone, but mainly for the Orlando Ballet.
Throughout the years, Harriet is, I guess, in one way, the biggest angel of all.
A quote that I very much relate with is, some people buy yachts and houses. I can't do that, I give it to the ballet.
She was an activist, huge philanthropist, so much fun, outspoken.
A force to reckon with, and at the same time, the most unique human being I've ever met in my life.
And very important to the community of Orlando.
The first night I had ever seen Harriet Lake, I was walking to get a drink for myself and my date. And suddenly this woman walked by and I thought, wow, I don't know who she is, but she's somebody famous.
Harriet was always an extravagant dresser.
I was, you know, from afar, a fangirl, I guess, of this fashion icon.
I remember her wonderful, cheery demeanor, but she would tell you like it was when she needed to.
Tough as nails.
Harriet had a list of nonprofits, and her most favorite was the Orlando Ballet.
I don't think that anyone before or since or ever will be as well regarded at a really critical time in the development of the cultural arts in Orlando.
After Orlando Ballet unfortunately lost their home on Lake Ivanhoe, the city of Orlando graciously allowed us a $1 a year lease on the land that now holds our home.
The city had donated the Lake Formosa Neighborhood Center.
I used to come to dances here every weekend when I was in high school. They would have live bands and everything.
Mayor Dyer and the city provided the land, and then you had Sybil Pritchard, who was chair of the ballet board at the time, and a long history with the ballet. And Mayor Jacobs on the Orange County side was a big advocate for the ballet. Sybil also brought Allen Ginsberg into the process to help us sort of rethink the design of the building and get some simplifications done. I think Harriet probably reached a point where she's like, if I don't pay for it, this building's never going to get done.
It's very difficult to raise money for the arts. I'm dedicated to the ballet, and I'm dedicated to keeping the arts alive because somebody has to do it, and I've considered it now my job. I refuse to die until I have a place for the ballet.
Harriet generously donated another $5 million. They wanted to get her that building done in her lifetime.
I got to go into her house and sit and chat with her and hear her ideas, thoughts, vision for the ballet, and walked away with 2 pictures, one of a mirror and one of the shell of a chandelier, which she told me then, that was December 2016. I bought these for what will become the eventual home of the ballet. I want you to promise me these will go into the ladies' room, and I want it to be blue.
Harriet passed right before the groundbreaking.
She died in July of 2018.
It didn't seem real, and it didn't seem fair that we gotten that close.
She was a treasure, of which I don't know if we'll ever see again in this community.
Groundbreakings are so ceremonial, right?
Allen Ginsberg bought cases of hot pink construction helmets.
We had some commemorative shovels.
A lot of dignitaries from the community.
Lots of pictures with county and city executives that were there supporting us.
It was a signal that the future was bright. There was a lot coming. We had a lot to look forward to. We're gonna have a home together.
And then everything just went to warp speed. This is tilt wall construction, so once it starts, it goes up really fast.
The first time I walked into this building, I was with some dancers. I remember them all crying. Wow, I just got emotional. Yeah.
To see what gift she gave in her passing is wonderful.
This building represents not only the history of the ballet, it represents the caliber of the ballet. It's what the ballet deserves. And it is, in my opinion, the most beautiful arts building in town.
I mean, what organizations around the country can say that they have a home like this? And this place would not be possible without Harriet.
When you have a building like this, you have the quality of the performance we have. It gives it a sense of permanence. It changes how other people view the ballet.
It was years of fighting to keep this ballet open, and Harriet stuck with it. She was not going to let this place go.
Oh, the future home. I could cry. It means so much to me. I never dreamed that we would have a home like that, all in one space.
When I arrived at Orlando Ballet, there were multiple challenges that had to be dealt with by me and everybody else.
I think it kept people a little bit on edge. You know, are we gonna be able to move forward? Can we look at new and exciting things for the company? Can we hire new dancers? You know, can we give the dancers raises? I mean, it was difficult.
The administrative staff was 7 in total, so there were very few people with a lot of balls in the air.
I can tell you, we were in rehearsal. I was, you know, that first year I was here working part-time, so I'd always check in and say, you know, so I'll be back on Friday, usual rehearsal, that kind of thing. And I remember Robert turning to me and saying, well, if we can make payroll by the end of the week, we'll see you back. So, yeah, it was pretty touch and go for a while.
Looking at the numbers, the ballet was on paper was bankrupt. I think that the organization had never really sort of addressed this sort of fundamental challenges that it had in terms of all the dents and dings of multiple financial crises over time. There was always a continuous cycle and that had almost exhausted the community of, you know, ballet's doing great, 2 years later, save the ballet. And it was just, there was a fatigue. And there was a fatigue in the organization.
Jonathan and Krista Ledden really brought some great new blood.
They're new to the community. They wanted to make an impact here in their new home, and truly embrace it.
Krista and I moved to Orlando. We came across Orlando Ballet. Krista went, and then I went to see a show. They were doing Dracula. The show looked great. We met Robert Hill, who was the artistic director at the time. And then Lisa Vinzan is also the associate artistic director now. Actually, I went to school with her.
Jonathan and Krista, they were immediately interested and supportive of the ballet. They wanted to see what they could do, how they could help.
Yeah, it's sort of a general notion that we wanted to get involved in the community and be impactful in our new community. So we gave them a check. That tends to get people attention. So we went out to the lunch with Robert and Lisa, and they're like, you got to join our board. The organization has been through a lot and had just gone through a lot.
Robert immediately said, please help us. Please show us, what you can do, how you can help us, because we need all the help we can get.
Jonathan brought his business expertise to make sure that this institution is here not for 50 years, for 100 years.
Everyone's heart's in the right place, but it's sort of like a family that's been through a lot of hard times. They're all good people, but they may not be good together. I probably ruffled some feathers, as some large donors have told me, but I said, we will be judged by our results.
The first thing he did when he came in was to help steward, and ultimately he wrote most of it, a long-range plan that would guide our path forward.
And we just felt that, we could make a difference. We just come off a big Save the Ballet campaign, still had the balance sheet problem. We had negative working capital, so you end up in a cash crunch. And so Chris and I put up a $250,000 temporary loan, as well as a $100,000 individual commitment.
They were there from the word go. They were absolutely thrilled to be part of the ballet. They had so much to offer and guidance.
The unstated commission was, I'm going to need to be board president. So I really approached it like any business restructuring, sort of a post-bankruptcy restructuring, right? Put new management in place, put a liquidity facility in place, get under the hood, figure out where the problems are and fix it.
Of course, he absolutely has the Midas touch. He knows how to make money from money, to make money when there is no money, to make money go further.
And they have bailed us out several times, and now we're on, as I understand from Jonathan, on the firmest financial footing that we've ever been.
We thought it was an organization worth investing in, and so that's that's why we started giving, and that's why we became interested in the board. But you can never rest in any business, but particularly this business, which is so subject to the economy, audience taste, the competitive environment. It's a very fragile business in the best of times. You can never take a absolute breath of relief in any business, but a lot of things came together at the end of 2019 and 2020. The Nutcracker broke $1 million box office, never done before. We did put a longer run in place. The building opened. It was done on a very fast track, which enabled us to consolidate all our operations under one roof. It enabled us to establish a signature event in our ballet ball, which is a must-go event. We sell it out 6 months in advance now because people love the event so much. So all the pieces were in place. We broke our box office record with Cinderella, a piece that means so much to this organization over the years. And we produced that in February of 2020. And then COVID.
During COVID, our school opened and company still operating.
How long is this going to go? Nobody knew. And so we just forged ahead.
And we were incredibly proud because we were only one professional company in North America, United States and Canada, performing.
It could have been devastating, and it was for many people. For us, we had no reduction in support from contributed revenue. Our donors stayed with us. Our subscribers, many of them, donated the value of their tickets back, so we did not have to refund all that money, and we could keep it to help keep the doors open.
So we were able to reopen pretty quickly in January, and we were able to reopen because we have a modern performing arts facility with, modern air handlers and so forth. We were able to go back on stage in the fall.
As long as we could do things safely for all involved, we were going to try.
Our director was magical. He took a 2-act production and make it into 1 act. So we're not allowed to have intermission during performances.
Our guests were there in the audience with their masks on, socially distanced, hanging with us while we were going through it.
And the audiences were happy to come back. I don't think we know of more than 1 or 2 ballet companies in 2020 that presented Nutcracker.
The summer of 2021, Robert Hill stepped down. Fortunately for us, Jordan Morris was here and accepted graciously the appointment as our next artistic director.
He's an amazing visionary.
Jordan is the master storyteller, and he leaves no detail unaddressed.
That sort of experience and institutional knowledge is very timely and important.
The guy is not just doing, he invests, he thinks, then he sketches, and then he listens.
Jordan is really special as an artistic director and as a creative force because he is as much a producer as a choreographer.
Seeing his artistic vision develop.
The techniques, the color, the creativity, the originality.
The dancers that he is bringing into the company to execute that vision.
It's not just about the choreography, it's not just about the sets, it's not just about the lighting, it's everything and how they're interwoven. And Jordan has that foresight.
He's very detailed about little things.
He'll choreograph on us, and then he'll see things that he likes, and he'll change things here and there. He really takes his time with everything to make it perfect.
He going to the rolls of the eyes, like details of how they move in the finger, because that is the same way when he going with costume. He want to see like little, like the edge of the, like how long is the jacket.
He has this wonderful ability to step back and take a moment and assess a situation. He looks at a dancer as an individual, he looks at their body type, he looks at how they approach things, their physicality.
He thinks about the business and he understands the rigging and he understands all the pieces.
So when you see his productions, you get a glimpse into who this guy must be.
What he did with the ballet, it's amazing.
He's taken blockbusters and made them into ballet performances. Things that will pull in people into the theater that would normally not go to see a ballet performance, they would go and see.
You actually connect with the feeling. And I found myself at times at some of the ballets where I'm out of breath, and I'm like,
I feel very fortunate and grateful. I owe a lot to the Robert Hills and the Fernando Bujonas and the Vasilis, who were trudging along through that to get the organization here. It also takes some pressure off, right? To allow me to focus a little bit more on the artistic vision without worrying about literally the foundation and where we stand financially with the room to grow and expand.
To do ballet, it's one of the toughest career anyone can choose. And it's not even paid that much. It's flavor of love, basically.
As a dancer, you live for the art, you live for the process, you live for the rehearsals and the exciting chance to be on the stage. Each leadership, whether it's in the school or in the company, has, I think, tried to make that happen for everybody in the organization.
For the art form to continue moving forward, you have to respect the people that came before you.
We've come so far. It would be nice if the founders could be here to see this.
Every time I walk in here, I think of my dad. I think my dad would be proud how he helped this to happen. I really do think he'd be proud.
They were my mentors. And I miss them all very much. Thank you for everything.
That energy from the beginning has extended this far.
I think they'd be floored. They'd be so proud of the foundation that they built.
And I had this beautiful upbringing, which maybe somebody would say it's bohemian and you wouldn't want your kid to go through that, but I wouldn't have it any other way because it was magic.
If you can push your chapter in the right direction, the book will continue to be written. And you have to remember the people that wrote the chapters before you, and hopefully you prepare the people ahead of you to write the chapters when you're gone.
We are moving in the direction that dance is evolving. We're right there.
And to see the growth of the company now and after the era of Gypsy Ballet Theater, and to see this facility and the staff and the teachers and the growth and the school and the students and the company is amazing.
Strides that Orlando Ballet has made in 50 years is it just blows you away, really.
As long as we stay together and continue to deliver on that mission, I know only good will come.
It's really neat to see the company being at the top of their game.
This company is situated itself among the top in the nation.
So many things are going extraordinarily well. In fact, we recently were ranked in the top 20 dance and ballet organizations in North America by the Dance Data Project.
The company of dancers are growing with the rep. They're growing with Jordan and the coaching and the guidance and the continuity. So I only see the company growing and really just taking a place at the table with other companies of its size and bigger.
We are also uniquely positioned in a community that is exploding. I know we are making history. I absolutely know it.
I think the organization sits ready for the next 50 years. We've delivered, I hope, a company that the community is proud of and that the community is ready to take forward to the next level.
They're going to continue to be able to put on some great performances here in Orlando.
In the future, we're evolving Nutcracker and creating a signature Nutcracker work. So we want it to be a family tradition, that more and more people come back every year to see our Nutcracker in any show of Orlando Ballets, because when they see it, they're entertained.
You're going to see us really continue to push the envelope, to continue to expand what the Orlando Ballet does in the community.
I believe in dance. I believe in the power of dance. It is the art form that speaks to me.
As long as Orlando Ballet continues programs for youth,
continuing to educate and enrich our students.
I love paving the future for the children that we see come in and out of here.
We have awards the best school of the year many times.
it will continue to be the gem of our arts community.
When you realize what's been done in 50 years, what couldn't be done in the next 20 or 30 or 50 years.
Not only is it the greatest music ever written, but here are these magnificent bodies defying gravity. I mean, they take you off to another planet. The giving is the whole deal. It really is.